Okay, so welcome back to the 10-6 Diaries. It has been a minute. I think it's been like a good month and a half, 2 months potentially, since I last uploaded, so apologies for the delay. I've just been very busy with my final sort of months at Syracuse, just getting everything done for the scholarship that I'm on, just doing work at university, actual work as well. Been very busy with a lot of things, but generally had quite a good time in Syracuse, other than the injuries, which weren't ideal, or the injuries that I've sort of had, which is sort of like self-inflicted, honestly. Like, it's kind of my fault for not regulating my training as well as I should be. That's sort of like a big thing that I've noticed being in Florida. So currently I'm staying with John Evans. He's my coach, been my coach for the past 5 years, and yeah, he trains some of the highest jumpers in the world. Some of these guys are jumping like 50 inches off of 2 feet, like Isaiah Rivera, Donovan Hawkins. I think he trained Tony Crosby as well. He's training Dylan McCarthy now, who is like this 18-year-old kid that's jumping 49 inches and is just this genetic freak. But one thing I've noticed, sort of being in the house with some of the guys and sort of seeing Isaiah train as well, is how good they are at sort of knowing their body and auto-regulating how they are going into training sessions. Even like Donovan, he rests quite a lot and is just this absolute output monster that is a genetic freak when it comes to jumping. Like, I know he lifts quite a lot, but he's not really in a heavy lifting cycle at the moment because he responds better to doing less work. When he's wanting to jump his highest, he'll just kind of cut out more of the weight room stuff and almost just go into like a very easy maintenance phase, very very similar to how a lot of sprinters would actually train for like the 100 meters in season. Less weight room volume, more track volume. So it's super interesting to see, and something that I should definitely sort of take a leaf out of their book and be more auto-regulatory, especially during a season when I'm fried. I think I just care too much about like executing the plan perfectly as best I can, but I've got to realise that sometimes as best you can is like cutting a session, cutting a set, cutting a rep, whatever it be. That's sometimes just the best course of action, and I need to sort of realise that. So that's kind of been a wake-up call for me. I think I have done it in the past, and I know that I should be better with doing it sort of currently, but it's just something I've like sort of always struggled with. I think I've said it in the past and I'll say it again, I always just get sort of freaked out when I get the smallest little injury, because I'm like, right, I need to just keep training on the plan. I don't want to cut sets. I want to execute everything the best I can. I want to give it my all, because I think it's just kind of like in my nature to want to give it my all, and I just get scared that I'm going to lose everything that I've built up, when in reality that's not going to be the case, like 9 times out of 10. But yeah, that's certainly been like a wake-up call, is just seeing how good these guys are at feeling little aches and pains and saying, look, I'm just gonna chill out. Like, as I say, Donovan, he's probably one of the most interesting guys to watch, because he's literally not really done that much training this whole time that I've been here, sort of the week and a half. I don't think I've seen him lift once. Oh no, maybe I saw him lift once last week, but he had a big dunk session on Friday. He didn't jump great by his standards, but he was still sort of in the upper 40 range, which was freaky to see. Isaiah, I think, tested 47 and I think it was 47 he tested, and and the flight times were sort of in the 48 range. So these guys were getting up, and it was just cool to see, and just to see how they kind of warm up as well. Like Dylan McCarthy, the guy that is 18 and jumps 49 inches. It was interesting to see to hear about his training. First of all, if you don't know him, I would advise you to like look him up. There was this podcast earlier in the year that was like kind of viral within the dunk community, and he essentially, like, his training methods are just crazy, like they're unheard of, really. Like, it's almost like the memes where people are like, oh yeah, I did like 1,000 calf raises, this is my workout, 1,000 calf raises, that. But he like legitimately does that shit, which is wild. I kind of didn't believe it, but then seeing him here, like, I saw him hit some reps on the calf raises. He did his like pool workout. He then jumped like a ton. Like, we left the session and he was still jumping. He like went back to it. He had like a sore quad. I think he finally is getting some sort of small injuries, but yeah, seeing him jump and seeing him sort of warm up, seeing how he sort of conducted himself through the session, it was very interesting. And I think it's a big thing. It's something that I obviously like know and recognize, but then seeing it just kind of, you know, brings it home, I guess, or like however the saying goes. It really just kind of shows you how sometimes you don't even need to really do the things that others do. You can kind of get away with anything if you have the genetics, and he's someone that just has the genetics to be jumping this high. Like, I'm not one to dog on his training or anything. Like, obviously he's gotten to this level doing what he's doing, but it is just interesting. Like, it's fascinating to see how there's more than one way to skin a cat, and that's the same with training. Like, you'll see sprinters that will lift heavy a lot, you'll see sprinters that barely lift at all, or like don't even lift, that are running like under 10. So there's quite a variety in the ways that you can go about training and go about chasing these adaptations for any sport, for jumping, for sprinting, for like, well, for weightlifting, it's really just weightlifting you do, right? You don't need to be doing any sprints, any jumps, really. I think it can help for weightlifting. I think that's honestly like an underrated area for weightlifters, is doing some sprints, because that's very protective of the hamstrings, but you don't really see it in their program. And I guess it's just the fact that they're like weightlifters and their whole goal is just like the most force that they can produce in like this given time period, so it kind of doesn't make sense. At the same time, I know some weightlifters do deal with hamstring issues, and it's interesting. Maybe they need to have like a reverse off season. Like, in the off season as sprinters, we kind of hit the weight room hard, and then we go to more track work when we're getting closer to the season, in the pre-comp phase, and then obviously in the competition phase, doing a lot of sprints. Whereas like weightlifters, they're more, you know, they're lifting, and maybe they should be doing sprints in the off season. I don't know. That would potentially, I'm sure there's probably been some sort of weightlifting study that the Russians did back in like the 60s or something, where they tested this out and had weightlifters sprint, but at the same time, it's probably just not a big enough issue for them to really say this is how we should try and address this. But it is interesting nonetheless. And I've not actually really talked about the training that I'm currently doing in this video, and again, apologies for this like really long video. I think it's like 29 minutes long, but I've just been, as I say, I've been busy, and it's a very boring video. It's 29 minutes and like 40 seconds of me just doing rehab training. So you'll see a lot of me like jumping off of boxes, maybe like jumping on boxes occasionally. Also, you'll maybe see me doing some upper body and a lot of slow strength for my lower body, because I had during this time period, I've had like many injuries. So I'm filming this obviously like months after, like 2 months after some of these sessions, and this sessions in particular, like these last few that you've seen, this was when I was in Washington. My parents came over to visit me in Syracuse, so we went to Washington for a few days. That was really nice. It was cool to see the capital and to see all of the different memorials that they had in the, I'm trying to think where it was again. It was like the cemetery, Arlington Cemetery. So we went over to there. I'd like rented a car, so it was easy enough to just drive, pay for parking, and sort it out that way. And then we drove up, did a little road trip through like Maryland, through Pennsylvania, and where else was it? I mean, I suppose it was like Washington, like Virginia. We were in there for a little bit, and then finally in New York went to Syracuse, obviously where I've been studying the past few years, where all of these sessions that you're sort of currently seeing are coming from, or have came from really for the last sort of 9 months. So that's me like done with Syracuse. That's my Syracuse chapter closed, which I'm like sad to say, but at the same time, it's, you know, my time there's the sun set on my time in Syracuse, and that's just the way it is. It was a good run. I think I did a good job. I hope I did a good job, and I was still able to train. It was nice to have access to like lots of food, although I did gain a lot of weight, which I think impacted my injuries. I think that made me a little more injury prone potentially, especially for like the jump side of things. I think if my knee had been good sooner, and if I hadn't have like gained the weight when I did gain it, I probably would have recovered from my injuries faster, from my knee pain specifically. And I think that was kind of a limiting factor for me, was just the fact that I was like gaining weight whilst doing this rehab work. Like, I literally went from like 144 all the way up to like 155. I think 154.6 is like the most that I weighed in officially. Might have weighed in at 155, 156 even some mornings, but officially I weighed in at like 154.6. And to be honest with you, I didn't even have access to scales like that often. I think I only was really able to like weigh in the morning post number 2, and that's like my usual weigh-in schedule, is like in the morning I'll weigh in after taking a dump and obviously having a piss as well, and that will be my sort of morning weight, and I'll go off of that for the rest of the day. So anytime I've hit like power clean or relative to body weight numbers that I've like included in the videos, it's always me after taking a dump, because that's kind of just the correct way to do it. So keep that in mind. Like, sometimes if I don't have access to like scales in the morning, I'll just like wait after the session or like before the session, but typically speaking it's gonna be like a morning time body weight. But for any of like the Syracuse sessions, most of them won't have been that, because I just didn't have access to scales, because I just thought it was like a pointless purchase if I'm only going to be there for like so long, like 9 months, and I'm not going to be able to take this scale with me. It just didn't make sense to buy a scale at that point, so I didn't buy a scale for the whole year. And yeah, that's sort of where I was at with like my body weight and everything. And as I say, I do think it really did contribute to a lot of the injuries, and potentially even is like still contributing. I mean, I've actually lost a good bit of weight currently. I'm weighing in anywhere from like 145.9 to like 148 is sort of been my range so far. Like, being at John's, I've had access to a scale every day, so like most days I've been weighing in, although some days I just kind of forget and don't weigh in. But typically every day I've been kind of consistent with it, and that's sort of my range at the moment for my body weight. But yeah, that's really the training. You see obviously here slow calf raises. So my knee was sort of my knee currently still is like the biggest issue, I would say. There's like another issue that's kind of cropped up that I think I'll go over potentially in the next video, or it'll be the video after that. It'll be whatever video I sort of reintroduce the sprints in. That's when I'll maybe talk about this like current issue that I am dealing with, because it'll be more applicable to that video. But for now I'll maybe just talk about like the knee pain, the distal hamstring pain, and my Achilles tendonitis that you obviously saw me before training, doing the slow strength, trying to fix my issues. And obviously here you see me doing more slow strength with the hamstrings, trying to really fix that issue. But the hamstring was a really weird one. I've never had hamstring pain like the back of my knee. It was like distal hamstring pain / top of the sort of gastrocnemius. So that was a strange one, but I have been able to treat it successfully. I think even in this video I potentially am at kind of a better stage. Like, for a long time it was probably at like I think the worst it got was I was doing like body weight hamstring curls, and it was feeling kind of bad. And this was all after I did the Canadian Champs. I don't know what happened at this race, but just my whole body kind of shut down after that, and I just haven't been the same since. It was just, yeah, like Achilles, the hamstring, and then the knee pain. The knee pain's been around since like pretty much October last year, but I've just been training around it in a funny kind of way and making it work, but also not really making it work, because the knee pain's still been there. But yeah, it seemed to be after the Canadian Champs that the right side of my body was like, nah, you need to chill. So that's obviously what I've been doing. I've been just focusing on getting healthy, getting back to things. It's looking sort of less and less likely day by day that I'm gonna get an outdoor season, which is unfortunate, because I was really hoping sort of the end of August. Initially, I think in the last video I said like July, like end of July is when I had my eyes set on competing potentially. I thought at that point I'll maybe be ready. May time, start of May, I was thinking, okay, maybe realistically it's going to be like end of August, and now we're into the start of June, and I'm thinking potentially it's mid-September. If I'm lucky, I'll maybe get like one competition at the Stratford Speed GP. That's where I'd probably go for the meet if I was going to open my season up. That's the race that I would do. I think it's on the 13th or 14th of September, but that's also looking a little bit unlikely, which is unfortunate because I really did want to compete. I feel like I'm honestly in great shape, and you'll sort of see it in the video where I actually do the sprints. And I actually sprinted with someone. Shout out to you, Justin. I don't know if you're going to watch this far into the video, but if you do, shout out to you. That was a crazy session. I'm excited to show you what kind of speeds this guy was hitting on the free lap. I was impressed. He went to Cornell and Cincinnati, and yeah, it was a cool session. I'll maybe like explain that. And I think low-key, I want to talk about the injury. I'm kind of getting too far ahead of myself because I'm going to talk about that in one of the other videos, but for now we'll just kind of focus on my training at this point. And as I say, the injuries, so I was talking about the distal hamstring tendinopathy before I went off on that like long tangent talking about things. I mean, I'm just a D1 yapper at this point. Like, I can really just go for days and days, but I need to kind of try and focus in on the actual sort of topics that I want to go over, which honestly I don't really write down topics for the videos. I usually just go off of like what the training looks like, but when the training's this boring, it's actually kind of hard to go for this long, go for like 16 minutes of yapping. But yeah, with the hamstring, I did find that doing the slow strength work, that did really help. I had to go very, very slow on it though for a while, like really slow single leg with like, I think I started at like 15 pounds and then maybe worked my way up to about 35 pounds in this video, single leg, like going very slow. I eventually tried this like lying hamstring version. One of my friends said, he's like, oh, I've never tried the seated one, but I've tried like a lying one. So I ended up adding, I think it was, I would alternate, like one session would be the seated version of the cable hamstring curls, and then the other was the lying version. And I quite liked both of them. I think they both were good, but I'd say I preferred the lying one. The lying one kind of made more sense almost. It was a bit more awkward to set up sometimes, but it did work the best, I would say, out of both of them. And then something else that I found interesting was that when I contracted, not really contracted, but when I dorsiflexed my foot, that seemed to sort of fix all the issues. There was also no hamstring pain. And like even now today, like months and months after this, there's like a little bit of hamstring pain, distal hamstring pain, that is where the sort of tendon originates at. I think it's the origin point is where the distal side, or like one of the origin points. But yeah, there's still sort of like a slight bit of pain with that if I push it into the ground, but I can sprint without that really causing any issues. So I don't know if it's a case of like once I get into like max velocity sprinting with this level of pain currently, which I would say it's like 2 to 3 out of 10 pain, but it's only in a very specific range of motion. It doesn't seem to really be getting better, but at the same time, as I say, I was able to sprint on it, so that's good. It's a good sign, obviously, but I just need to be careful with things and like listen to my body. As I was talking about earlier in the video with these kind of elite guys that I'm around, I need to just be good at auto-regulating my training, especially with all the injuries that I have at the moment. That's just a very big focus that I need to get better at doing that if I do want to really get to my peak levels of athleticism. That's probably one of the number one things. I think that's probably a big indicator of people that are great. You obviously have like genetic freaks that can sometimes just out-train, not like out-train their genetics, I wouldn't say that's a correct statement, but they can just train hard and they have the genetics to cope with the volumes that they do. Someone like Kobe, like low-key, his body couldn't really handle it because he obviously tore his Achilles, had probably a bunch of other injuries as well that I'm not well versed on Kobe's whole sort of story as an athlete. I just kind of know that he's a very hard-working guy, and he had the mentality of like, you know, you've got to outwork the next guy, and would be in the gym putting up shots at like 4 in the morning when his teammates would only turn up at like 7 a.m, you know, that kind of thing. I've heard those stories, and I think it's great when you have an athlete like that, but there's also like training smart. That's also a component. Like I could push through all of my injuries that I've got, but it's just going to lead to suboptimal results. It's not going to produce the best. It's not going to get me to my all-time peak performances, right? It's not going to do that for me. Whereas like Kobe maybe that did it for him. Maybe he was able to get to those levels because of what he did. But for myself, I certainly know that I can't push through this without there being serious repercussions. Like obviously with the knee, I kind of pushed a little too long with that, and it was a mistake. But I think it's important that I've like recognized the mistake, and it's important to try and like, that's why it's like really important to review your training often, and like each month, even at the end of a training cycle, you can kind of review things and say, okay, this is going well, this isn't going well, there's like this little ache, so I need to maybe be cognizant of what's potentially causing this. Is it too much volume? Is it that I've added this novel training stimulus in? Is it something else entirely? So you've got to really just regulate it. And as well, it's important when, especially when you have like exams and stuff coming up, like that's probably something that's impacted my recovery a little bit in this video, is the fact that I've had a lot of other things in my life. Like I had exams at this point, I had work, there was things for the scholarship that I had to do, so there's just a lot of things that are kind of factoring in that are going to add stress and are going to sort of reduce your recovery. And if you're not really accounting for these things, that's when you'll get these like small injuries. That's when you'll have just a slight bit less recovery that's going to make the difference when it comes to being injury free versus having an injury. That's why it would be ideal to just live the perfect life without any stresses at all. But even then, it's like you need stress to be, I think there was a study recently and it was like you need like cortisol and stress. If you don't have that, then it sort of messes your hormonal profile up, which in turn will just kind of like flatline your performance as an athlete. So there's like extents of you need stress, you just have to be careful with the kind of stresses, and you have to sort of regulate training based off of some of the stresses, at least in your life. And that's something I think that is very important and is underrated in training. I think oftentimes it's not going to be the hardest working guy, it's going to be the smartest working guy that's going to see the best results and is going to reap the most out of his training, because he's the one that's going to, you know, I guess like in a way live long enough to be able to reap those rewards, whereas the others have to quit because they burn out, because they get injured, all of those things. So I think it is, at the end of the day, it's a race of the smartest, not the hardest worker, always. Obviously hard work is very important, you need to put a lot of time and effort in, but at the same time you need to be smart with it. You're not going to like live forever. You've got to be cognizant of the fact that your body is not indestructible, you are not indestructible, and inevitably something will go wrong if it can go wrong. And even if you're really smart and do everything perfect, there's still a chance that something's going to go wrong. So in one regard, don't be overly careful, but don't be reckless at the same time. It's like finding the balance between those two, I think, is the most important thing, honestly. But yeah, I was on another tangent again there. So I've kind of talked about that. Achilles issues. Currently Achilles is doing great, waking up day to day, absolutely no pain whatsoever, you know, knock on wood, feeling really good with the Achilles. So I think I'm kind of over the hill with that. That was one that I was really scared with, because Achilles issues are just kind of a scary thing for me. Like, you always see people tearing their Achilles. I'm always just a bit like, really don't want that injury. That's like that's got to be like a top 5 like worst injury, like an Achilles tear. Like, you see, like, it's people always say it feels like they're like getting kicked in the legs, or like, you know, it sounds like a gunshot going off. It's just like a scary injury that I don't want to experience. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. So that's why I'm always a bit cautious with Achilles pain. And that's why you need to be cautious with it as well. It's an injury that can mess up a lot of sprinters, and I think I can't even really push hard, or I couldn't push hard when the injury first sort of like onset. I found that it was like inhibiting me from even just sprinting maximal, so it was good that I've sorted that out now. So yeah, hamstring, Achilles feels good. Knee's kind of the last link that's still a little bit bothersome, although within the coming weeks I actually think it's for sure going to be finished, because I'm really going to just take things a lot easier than what I have been recently, at least. So that's the plan with the knee. And then this next injury that I will again just discuss in sort of one of, not the next video, but probably the video after that. So that's kind of where I am at with all the injuries. exciting things. Obviously I'm staying in Florida at the moment with John. That's like super exciting and fun. But what was I going to say? Yeah, in Florida with John, and what we're doing tomorrow actually, so it's going to be Thursday tomorrow, filming the audio on the Wednesday, and the video is going to go up Friday. What's happening tomorrow is Donovan Hawkins is going to test his 30 meter time, I think, or potentially 40-yard dash. One of the two. We're going to set it up regardless, and it should be good fun. So yeah, he's going to test that, and we're going to see where he's at. So I can roughly like estimate 100 meter times off of like a 30 meter time. You can roughly figure out like, okay, they're probably going to run this for 100 meters or that. It's a very sort of rough approximation, because obviously you have someone like maybe, trying to think who would be a good example, like Gout, right? If I assessed his 30 meters, I reckon he would probably honestly be, I don't know if he'd be on, I think he'd be faster than me honestly, but I don't think he would be that much faster over like a 30 or like a 20 probably, especially maybe by the 30 he's starting to kind of like put a few, you know, like 0.5 of a meter on me by the 30. Obviously then by the end of the race he's put like 10 meters on me pretty much, but I don't think his 30 would be that good on the free lap, so that's like a caveat to that. So it'll be interesting to see with Donovan. He's legitimately like just under 6'4". He's like, I think he said he was 6'3" and 5'8". So for anyone that wanted to know Donovan's height, barefoot, 6'3" and 5'8". I've just exposed it here. I don't know if he's put that out anywhere on the internet, but groundbreaking stuff on my channel as always. But yeah, so he's obviously a taller athlete, so he shouldn't be as good at accelerating, but he is actually like very good at accelerating, so it'll be interesting to see. I think if he's going sub 4 on the free lap from like the touchpad in a 30, I think he would be definitely in like sub 11 shape, which is uncharted territory really, because so I think obviously there's people that are running, or that would run like low 11s to sub 11 in like their first race, like Eugene Amadadzi is someone that comes to mind. I think his first time on Power of 10 is like a 10:93 100 in a competition. But in terms of like, he did that when he was like completely untrained, I think he'd been playing football, and his friend had sort of said, hey, you should like get into sprinting, right? You should go and try it out. Whereas Donovan, he's been training as a dunker for the past, how long has it been? Probably like three years. I think he like had a little off period, so maybe the past 2 years, right? We'll say 2 years. So he's been training the past 2 years. He was like a genetic freak when it came to jumping to begin with, and then he's just kind of gotten even better with the training. So he's like currently probably at like a 50.5. But yeah, so his like outputs are really good, so it's just going to be very interesting to see where he's at with training and everything. I think potentially, as I say, if he's like sub 11 shape, he could be, you know, I don't think it would be impossible for him to get down to like a sub 11 like Eugene Amadadzi. And on top of that as well, as I was saying before, it's like uncharted territory. Sorry, they actually just came back. I just saw like Donovan and Josh walk past the window. But yeah, if he runs, like he's in uncharted territory because he has this like very high level of training for like jumping specifically, whereas he's never trained for sprints really. I think he's done some sprints in his training in the past, but never specifically trained for it. So it'll just be like super interesting to see if he does end up getting into sprinting, because from the sounds of it, he's potentially like thinking about like at least dabbling in sprints for, I don't know for how long, but it'll be interesting to see. As I say, I think I've said that, you know, drink every time I say it will be interesting to see. But yeah, so he's running tomorrow. Too long didn't read. He's running tomorrow, and we will see what his like 30 meter time is. So I'm excited to see. I think Tyler Lutz is coming down as well, so Tyler should be another fast guy to have. It's always good to have fast guys. I'm not going to be running because injuries, and I'm a shite bag, so that's it. But that's the video. I've successfully yapped for the whole length, and I hope you enjoyed it.